I never imagined that a chance hug with a billionaire would lead to a heart-stopping romance. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The sun hung heavy in the sky, washing the city in a golden hue, but my heart felt like a storm was brewing. I stood at the busy crosswalk. My hands trembled as I clutched the crumpled letter, the words blurring into a mess of ink and tears. My parents had lost everything, all due to some cruel twist of fate that left us teetering on the brink of disaster. I was drowning in uncertainty, fighting to find air amid the waves of anxiety. Then, from out of nowhere, he appeared. His tailored suit clung to an athletic frame, and his dark hair glistened with a sheen that seemed to almost pulse with a life of its own. He moved like a magnet, drawing the attention of everyone in the vicinity. As fate would have it, our paths crossed just as the light turned red, and in that split second of chaos, he collided into me. I stumbled, bracing for impact, but instead of a harsh thud, I felt warmth envelop me, his arms wrapping around me in a protective embrace. In that moment, everything else faded: the noise, the worries, even the weight of my family's plight. It was just him and me, suspended in a bubble of heat and breath. Those eyes, deep and stormy, held an intensity that sent a tremor down my spine. Part of me was soaring, floating on the thrill of that unexpected connection, while another part screamed in caution. Who was he? A billionaire, a savior, or merely a stranger? I could see glimmers of surprise and intrigue flicker in the gazes of passers-by, and I knew we were drawing attention. It was intoxicating yet terrifying, like I was dancing on the edge of a precipice. After that brief embrace, the world rushed in again with sharp edges. He stepped back, releasing me reluctantly, yet the heat of his presence lingered in the air. Our eyes locked. I could almost hear my heart against the chaos around us. But what pulled at me most was the flash of a deep sadness that clouded his gaze. Did he carry burdens too? What secrets lay behind that sophisticated facade? As he turned to leave, I felt a magnetic pull, an urge to call out, to understand more about this man who had ignited a flicker of hope in my chest. But I remained silent, gripping the letter tighter until it crumpled into a ball, a sign of my weariness. I wanted to chase after him, to grab his hand, to plead for answers. Could he be the solution to the turmoil in my life? Could I ever see him again? The crosswalk light changed, but I stood still, lost in the whirlwind of thoughts, confusion tangling with curiosity. All at once, I felt the ground shift beneath me, uncertainty gnawing at my insides. Who was this billionaire, and fate, having thrown us together, what could possibly come next? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The days that followed that unexpected collision haunted me like a fading dream, vibrant and compelling yet filled with uncertainty. Each morning I awoke to the same anxious knot in my stomach, the letter to my parents' bank looming over me like a dark storm cloud. The crumpled paper, with its foreboding words, was a harsh reminder of the reality I had not yet fully accepted. I craved distraction but found none, my thoughts gravitating toward that brief encounter with the billionaire, whom I now referred to as the stranger in my mind, a title that felt both mysterious and painfully inadequate for the connection we shared in that fleeting moment. On a day painted with dull grays, I stood in the middle of the bustling coffee shop, desperately trying to drown my thoughts in the scent of freshly brewed espresso. The clatter of mugs and soft chatter around me faded into background noise, each heartbeat reminding me of my mounting fear. As the barista called out orders, my eyes flicked to the door repeatedly. Each time the bell tinkled, my pulse quickened, a wild hope blooming unbidden, only to wither at the absence of his striking form. Just as I was about to retreat into the depths of my thoughts, a soft voice broke through the fog. "Excuse me, is this seat taken?" I looked up, surprised to see a woman with a warm smile seated across from me. Her auburn hair framed gentle features that radiated kindness. No, it's not, I managed, motioning for her to join me. She settled in comfort, her presence shifting the atmosphere around us. "Mia," she introduced herself, eyes twinkling with genuine interest. You look like you need some company. I'm dealing with some chaos myself that I found solace in her straightforwardness. Sophia. Just got some heavy news. She nodded, leaning in slightly. From the look on your face, I'd say more than just a little. Want to talk about it? As I recounted the letter detailing my family's predicament, something remarkable happened. The heaviness began to lift, piece by piece, with each word I uttered. Mia's unwavering attention made me feel seen, her empathy palpable. She shared her own tale of struggles, a business that had recently floundered and left her grappling with bills and broken dreams. In that small moment, it felt as if we were lifting each other, two souls navigating the storm of life together. Talk turned to lighter subjects, and laughter bubbled up, weaving between our shared stories. It was a brief respite, a much-needed reminder that there is still light in the world even among darkness. When I stood to leave, Mia handed me her business card, a quirky design filled with warmth like her spirit. You have my number, she insisted. Call me if you ever need someone to talk to or if you want to brainstorm ideas. Let's keep the positivity flowing, shall we? I held onto her card, a feeling of connection lingering, but as I stepped outside, the sky went from muted gray to an angry slate. The winds began to whip around me, a harsh contrast to the comforting warmth I'd just experienced inside the café. My mind wrestled with the thought of whether I should simply embrace the kindness Mia extended or keep my walls firmly erected. Hours later, back in my cramped apartment, solitude settled in like an unwanted guest. The silence around me magnified the doubts crashing like waves against the shores of my mind. The letter sat on the table, an incessant reminder of the looming crisis. Suddenly, my phone buzzed, jolting me from thoughts of despair. A text appeared on the screen, a name I hadn't expected, Mason. Heart racing, I opened the message. Sophia, I'd like to see you again. Can we meet? The words felt heavy and electric at the same time, igniting hope and reverberating fear within me. Another chance encounter, or perhaps the semblance of fate weaving a thread between us once again. But as I read his name, images of the billionaire's stormy eyes flooded my thoughts, tangled with all the worry swirling within as doubts threatened to cloud whatever joy or hope his message offered. Could I allow myself to dive into this? Every nerve screamed to keep my heart guarded, yet a part of me yearned for connection. As I stared at the message, the weight of my circumstances, the uncertainty surrounding Mason, and the burgeoning friendship with Mia mingled, creating a storm of emotion that felt almost unbearable. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed again, this time an unknown number. My heart sank as I answered. Hello? The gravelly voice on the other end sent a chill racing down my spine. Sophia? We need to talk. Your parents' situation just got a whole lot more complicated. And suddenly, I was standing on the precipice again, teetering between choices that could alter the path of my life forever. I stumbled back, my hand gripping the phone tightly as the words of the mysterious caller echoed like a siren in the night. What do you mean? I managed to choke out, panic threatening to drown me. I could almost hear the pulse of my heart pulsating in my ears, drowning out the rest of the world. There was a pause on the other end, weighty and laden with gravity, before he continued, they're in deeper than you know. You need to meet me. Who are you? I interrupted, the instinct to protect what little I had left fighting against the rising tide of fear. I wanted to hang up, but curiosity clenched my heart like a vice. Just someone who can help you, he replied, his voice softer now, a hint of desperation seeping through. But you have to trust me. Your parents, they're not safe. That I felt a rush of warmth creeping up my spine, mingling with the frigid fear cascading through my body. What do you mean, not safe? I whispered, my voice faltering. They've made some dangerous decisions, and there are people who want to settle a score. You need answers, and I can help you uncover the truth, he insisted, his voice steady now, though something unresolved simmered behind his words. Before I could respond, the line clicked dead, leaving me suspended in a fog of confusion and fear. I took a step back, feeling as if the ground was slipping beneath me. The room felt suddenly claustrophobic, walls closing in as the weight of my family's troubles surged through me with renewed ferocity. The urgency stirred a tumult within, thoughts spiraling like a whirlpool. I had to act. I had to make a choice. Either I could confront the reality of my parents' situation head-on, or I could continue to wrestle with my uncertainty, a battle that had led me nowhere so far. Just then, the charm of the cafe and my uplifting conversation with Mia flickered like a candle in my mind. Taking a deep breath, I reached for her business card resting on the table. This was the first moment I could remember where I didn't feel utterly alone, and perhaps it was time to lean back into that small spark of connection. I had the kind of friend who could offer support, and maybe even share in the fear that wrapped around my heart. Quickly, I sent Mia a text. "Can we talk? I need your help." I hesitated before hitting send, my heart in my throat. Would she think I was weak or dramatic? Still, the flicker of hope kindled by her kindness urged me forward. While I waited for her reply, I steeled myself for the next steps. As shadows danced in the muted light of my living room, the phone buzzed again. I swiped to see Mia's response. "Of course. Let's meet. You can share whatever it is, and we can figure it out together." I felt a sigh of relief wash over me, something small and tender warming the edges of my anxiety. Maybe I wasn't alone after all. As I prepared for our meeting, the doorbell rang, startling me. With trepidation, I moved to answer it, heart hammering in my chest. When I opened the door, I was met by the last person I expected. Mason stood on the threshold, his face a storm of concern but softened in a way I hadn't seen before. "Sophia," he breathed, his voice low and intense. "I got your number from the coffee shop." The moment hung in the air, charged with a mix of emotions, an overlapping tapestry of past joy and current fear. I opened my mouth to speak, but the words tangled in the knot of confusion that had taken residence in my mind. "That I need to talk to you," he said, urgency dancing in his tone. "Please, I can help you figure out what's happening. I can protect you." Instinctively, I took a step back, a silent defense mechanism kicking in. "What do you know about my family?" I questioned, conflict battling within Maya's genuine desire to help clashing against the icy walls I'd built around my heart. "Enough. They're involved in something dangerous, and I can't stand by while you jeopardize yourself," he insisted, desperation creeping into his voice. Suddenly, a fresh wave of determination surged within me, fueled by the chaos that threatened to unravel my life. A part of me yearned to reject Mason at first breath, but instinct told me that somewhere within, he could provide the answers I desperately needed. I could sense he was more than just the stranger now. He had become a pivotal thread in this fabric of uncertainty. Yet, as I wrestled with my thoughts, the phone buzzed once more, jangling in my pocket. Ignoring the wave of panic that washed over me, I pulled it out. Another unknown number flashed on the screen, and suddenly, a gnawing fear clawed at my insides. "Mason, wait," I began, but before I could say more, the phone slipped from my fingers, the screensaver illuminating a name that made my heart stop. Staring back at me was a picture of my parents, the truth and danger they faced surfacing in equal measure, and the unanswered call only adding weight to my precarious decision. With trembling hands, I picked up the phone once again, the walls closing in further as I stared at the incoming call. In that moment, I felt the precipice under me shift. This would be the moment everything could change. The screen flickered, my parents' faces frozen in a still shot that felt like a punch to the gut. The call was unanswered, but the implications loomed larger than life itself. My pulse raced, and panic merged with determination, fueling my urgency. I looked back at Mason, his expression a potent blend of worry and a fierce resolve that mirrored my own. "What do we do?" I asked breathlessly, the gravity of the situation pushing against my chest like a weight. "That we need to answer that call," he replied, his tone strong yet laced with something softer that almost felt protective. "This isn't just about you now. We need to figure out what's going on with your parents. They're likely in danger." My instinct screamed to grab the phone and retreat to the safety of solitude, yet the thought of my parents, off their faces lighting up with pride or emphasizing love in every glimmer of their eyes, kept me rooted. I swallowed hard, nodding slowly, accepting that I was no longer alone in this fight. With shaky fingers, I hit accept, the screen illuminating my face with a harsh light. I heard a shuffling noise before a voice broke through the static, tinged with urgency. "Sophia. Thank God you picked up. You have to listen to me. Who is this?" I croaked, my voice barely recognizable as I braced myself for the worst. "It's Aaron, from the agency." "Your parents," he trailed off, the tension palpable. They've made a mistake. They're in over their heads, and you could be next if you don't do exactly what I say. Mason's presence became a grounding force beside me, the warmth of his body almost offering solace against the storm that had surged within me. What do you mean? What have they done? I pressed, feeling the quiver in my voice. There are people looking for them. Dangerous people. The kind that won't hesitate to silence anyone in their path. You need to get out of there now. My stomach dropped. Out of where? I whispered, dread pooling there like a stone. Your house, Sophia. You have to leave now. I sent someone to pick you up. Just trust me, all right? You have to. The line went dead before he could finish, leaving only the echo of my heartbeat in my ears. My mind raced, flooded with uncertainty and fear, the thought of abandoning the home I had known clashing unbearably with the instinct to flee. Mason took a step closer, the spark of empathy in his eyes twinkling with hope through the thick wall of chaos. We can do this together, he insisted gently, his sincerity cutting through the haze. But you need to make the choice. The thought of leaving filled me with crippling anxiety. My parents were out there, lost in a web of danger, and I was being told to run. The battle waged fiercely within me. Memories of laughter during family dinners, hugs after a long day, and quiet moments taken for granted surged through my heart. To leave felt sacrilegious, and yet staying could mean certain peril. Before I could respond, I heard footsteps echoing outside, each step like a ticking clock measuring my hesitations. The weight of my decision came crashing down, and just as I was about to speak, a figure appeared in the doorway behind Mason. A sharp intake of breath caught in my throat as I recognized the newcomer. Mia? I exclaimed, confusion flooding my words. What are you doing here? Her gaze darted around the room, a frantic energy coursing through her. I came as soon as you'd texted. I was worried. You sounded. Mia, you have to go, Mason interrupted, his voice firm but laced with concern. It's not safe here. She turned to me, eyes wide and earnest. You don't have to go through this alone, Sophia. You can trust me. In that moment, I felt a crushing weight settle over my shoulders, the enormity of my reality crashing down like a tidal wave. Trust felt like a luxury I could not afford, but here they were, both Mason and Mia, offering me a lifeline when I felt like I was drowning in uncertainty. My voice wavered, the path forward shrouded in shadow. I could feel the pulse of fear beckoning me toward the path of escape, yet my heart ached for home and familiarity. Then came a loud crash from outside, sharp and disorienting, pulling my focus into an unbearable urgency. I turned to Mason and Mia, electricity crackling in the air as reality slammed against my senses. I can't sit here anymore. We have to decide now. The world outside was unrelenting, and as the moments ticked by, my heart began to race with a new fervor. I looked into their eyes, searching for any glimmer of assurance. Would I step into the unknown darkness, or would I fight for my past? This decision would mark the beginning of my fate, but right then, as another noise rang out from beyond, I wondered if I could afford to hesitate any longer. In that decisive heartbeat of uncertainty, a siren suddenly wailed in the distance, and I realized the choice had been made for me. The siren's wail pierced through the chaotic tumult of my thoughts, drawing my focus to the reality at hand. It was as if the universe had conspired to break my hesitation, forcing my hand in a direction I never expected to take. With a deep, unsteady breath, I turned back to Mason and Mia, desperation lacing my voice. We have to go now. Without waiting for a response, I sprinted toward the door, my heart pounding in my chest like a war drum. The weight of the choice loomed like an oppressive fog, yet there was no turning back. Every moment spent in stasis threatened to tighten the shackles of fear around my ankles. Mason and Mia fell in step beside me, our hurried movements becoming an unspoken pact of unity and urgency. As we burst out into the open air, nightfall wrapped around us, heavy with tension. My heart raced, anticipation blending with dread. Somewhere out there, my parents were in jeopardy, and it felt as if the ground beneath me was shifting. The street was empty and silent, the shadows flickering ominously under the pale glow of streetlights. The air carried a chill that seeped through my skin and settled deep into my bones. I turned to Mia, who had a determined look plastered across her face but also an underlying layer of worry. Where's the car? I asked, attempting to steady my nerves, just down the block. She shouted, her voice resolute in the night. We need to hurry. We raced forward, adrenaline propelling us, each step echoing the urgency of our situation. A sudden thought struck me, and I hesitated for a brief instant. What if this is a trap? My voice quivered with uncertainty, a bead of sweat clinging to my brow like despair. What if we're walking right into danger? Mason halted, his hand clasping my shoulder gently, yet his grip was firm. Sophia, we can't stay here. His eyes searched mine, eyes rich with understanding and kindness. I promise, we'll figure this out. Let's stick together. I found solace in his words, a flicker of warmth amidst the biting cold of uncertainty. Taking a deep breath, I nodded and readied myself to continue, subtly placing my faith in him and As we rounded the corner, I caught sight of a black sedan parked along the curb, its engine softly humming in the latent silence, a vehicle seemingly plucked from a scene of escape in a storybook. The driver, a man in a dark jacket, leaned against the car, casting a wary glance in our direction. Get in. Mia urged, her voice barely rising above the tension in the air. We dove toward the car, its interior welcoming yet foreign, a sanctuary wrapped in anxiety. The driver activated the locks as we slid into our seats, a protective barrier between us and the chaos we had left behind. As we settled, I caught a glimpse of his face. There was something oddly familiar about him, an unsettling feeling that gnawed at me. Let's go, the driver instructed, his voice low but commanding as he pulled away from the curb. Mason slid his hand over mine, a reassuring touch that ignited a confusing mixture of emotions within me. In that instant, a flicker of normalcy felt misplaced among the turmoil. The driver, sensing our tension, glanced at me through the rearview mirror. I'm here to help. I'll get you to safety. Safety? I echoed, heart pounding in a different rhythm as the word twisted in my throat. It felt like a distant fantasy, something far removed from my reality. What do you know about my parents? His expression hardened. More than you realize. They were caught in a dangerous web. Before he could finish, the distinctive sound of screeching tires interrupted us. A shadow surged behind us, headlights illuminating the rearview. Fear knotted my stomach into a tight ball as I turned to Mason, panic radiating off his features. They're coming. Mia's breath hitched next to me, mirroring my growing terror. We need to lose them, she urged. The driver's focus sharpened. He swerved sharply down an alley, the car careening around a corner with a speed that sent adrenaline surging through my veins. Hold on. The world outside morphed into a distorted blur, the city racing past us. As we fled, whatever ominous threat loomed in our wake. As we navigated the winding streets, I felt the layers of my expectations unraveling, threads of my past intertwining with the uncertainty of the present. The overwhelming stakes made time and resolve feel disjointed, fleeting. Just as I steadied myself, an ear-splitting crack erupted from behind USA gunshot. My heart dropped into my stomach as the weight of reality crashed down. We were no longer just running from uncertainty, we were running for our lives. Without warning, the driver swerved again, shouting back, I need you all to duck. In a heartbeat, we instinctively huddled, the muffled sound of metal scraping against metal ringing in my ears. I dared a glance back, my pulse racing furiously. That ominous vehicle wasn't giving up, it was relentless in its pursuit, a specter chasing us deeper into a darkness that felt eternal, and in that moment of frantic chaos, a thought struck like lightning. What if they weren't just after my parents? What if they were coming for me? An icy chill cascaded down my spine, the realization hitting me like a wave crashing against the shore, consuming. Suddenly, the air in the car felt heavier, suffocating me with the weight of my thoughts, and just as hope flickered in my heart, a deafening crash erupted, shattering the air like glass. The last thing I remembered was the sensation of metal, then darkness. I woke to the acrid scent of burnt rubber and a ringing in my ears that pulsed with every beat of my racing heart. My surroundings were hazy, blurred lines of past events crashing together in a fervid nightmare. Panic squeezed my chest until it felt like I was drowning in the weight of the unknown. I blinked through the fog, and my heartbeat quickened when I recognized the faint outline of Mason sitting against the wall of the alleyway, blood trickling from a cut above his brow. His eyes were wide, yet a flicker of relief ignited them as he caught sight of me. Sophia! He shouted, scrambling to his feet, the urgency in his voice slicing through the confusion that enveloped me. Mia? Where's Mia? I croaked, pushing myself to a seated position, my limbs heavy as if encased in concrete. Mason's hands were trembling as he brushed some debris from my shoulder, his eyes scanning the alley around us, dilated in pure alarm. She's a few feet away. She's hurt, but she's conscious. His voice cracked, and my heart sank further. I turned toward Mia, who lay crumpled against a wall, her face pale but her eyes bleary and alert. Mia. I called, inching toward her despite the dull ache that pulsed in my side. I kneeled beside her, my hands shaking as I assessed the bruises blooming on her skin. What happened? Are you okay? I think I'm going to be sick, she whispered, wincing as I brushed her hair back from her forehead. The seriousness of her injury creased my brow as I glanced at Mason, hovering anxiously behind me. We need to get you both out of here before they come back, he urged, his voice tense and frantic. Who? I hissed, confusion and fear intertwining in my gut. Who was chasing us? Before Mason could respond, a throat cleared behind us, abrupt and heavy. We wheeled around to see the driver, the man who had promised safety, looming in the alley's entrance, his expression a mix of concern and urgency. We need to go. Now, he said, his voice clipped, are you here to help or finish what they started? I shot back, fatigue and anger merging into a boldness I hadn't known I possessed. His jaw tightened, and he took a step closer, revealing the scars of a life clearly more complicated than I had first assumed. I'm here to get you out of this mess, but we don't have time to explain. Your parents, he hesitated, looking at Mason and Mia. They were involved in something large, something dangerous. If they've targeted you, it means they know too much already. What do you mean? The question clung to my lips like a prayer, trembling with desperation. What is it about my family? There's so much you don't understand. He stepped closer, lowering his voice, urgency clawing at every syllable. We're being hunted. They'll stop at nothing to erase anyone who stands in their way. The weight of his words landed heavily in the pit of my stomach. It wasn't only my parents in danger, it was all of us. A spark of resolve kindled within me. This was not just my fight anymore, it was ours, and as much as my instinct screamed to run, somewhere deep I also knew that confronting this head-on was the only way we would find peace. Mason crouched closer to Mia, who winced as he examined her injuries. Can you stand? He asked gently, his voice a soothing balm against her pain. We can do this together. Mia nodded slowly, her determination merging with the fear reflected in her eyes. With Mason's help, she managed to rise unsteadily, leaning into him for support. Just tell me where to go, she murmured, a fierce softness buoyed by her fragile strength. Follow me, the driver commanded, turning abruptly as he took the lead. We'll need to move quickly. As we followed him down the narrow alley, an unexpected warmth flooded my heart, a burgeoning sense of belonging, of unity. For the first time, it didn't feel like I was alone in this whirlwind of chaos. We were all bound together, strangely fortified by our shared turmoil. But a new fear clawed at me as we neared the end of the alley. I glanced back at Mason and Mia, wondering if we would emerge from this. What if the danger was lurking just beyond the shadows? Just then, my phone buzzed violently in my pocket, a sound so starkly out of place that it jolted me from my thoughts. My fingers shook as I yanked it free, the screen illuminating in the dim light, revealing an unknown caller. This isn't the time, Mason began, but I felt drawn to answer it, as if something deep inside knew it was meant for me. I slid my finger across the screen and brought the phone to my ear. Hello? My voice tremored with uncertainty. Sophia, the voice on the other end was cold yet familiar, sending a shiver down my spine. You need to listen closely. They're planning something bigger than you realize. Get to the old warehouse by the docks. But don't trust anyone. And the call cut off abruptly, leaving only silence in its wake, the weight of the world coiling tighter around me. I turned to Mason and Mia, their expressions mirroring my shock. What did they say? Mason pressed urgently. They want us to go to the docks, I replied, the truth settling heavily in the pit of my stomach like a stone. A deafening silence descended, days, months, and possibly years of uneasiness coiling into a singular moment. A choice lay before us, darker than the night itself, but it was a choice we had to make. And as the shadows hung ominously in the distance, a new chill slithered down my spine. This was not just a rescue, this was a reckoning, and deep down, I knew that understanding who I truly was would unveil the heart-stopping truth that awaited us. I never imagined that a chance hug with a billionaire would lead to a heart-stopping romance. The darkness of the alley loomed behind us, thick and oppressive, but the weight of the unknown felt lighter compared to the urgency brewing within my chest. Each footstep echoed, the sound of our hurried breaths punctuating the stillness around us. Mason kept close to Mia, their swaying silhouettes merging into a single hesitant form, and I found myself falling into step with the driver, seeking the distance between us and whatever shadows were lurking behind. "What's at the warehouse?" I whispered, the anticipation knotting my stomach tighter. "Answers," he replied brusquely, his eyes scanning the street as we navigated the labyrinth of alleys and hidden paths. "But be warned. Those answers may lead to more questions, and not all of them will be delightful." Mason's pace quickened as he shifted to support Mia more firmly. "Questions are better than being left in the dark all the time," he said, a flicker of anger lighting up his voice. We've had enough secrets to last a lifetime. That I shared a look with Mason, the depth of his turmoil radiating through his weary features. It reminded me of every late-night conversation Wedge shared, every secret glance exchanged when the world around us faded into obscurity. We were all grappling with our own truths, yet the weight of these new revelations felt monolithic. Just when I thought we were nearing some semblance of clarity, a heavy tremor rippled through the ground, sending our trio reeling. A muffled explosion echoed nearby, not too far from where we were headed. My breath caught in my throat, and panic surged again. Was it a warning? An attack? "We need to hurry." The driver's voice shook us from our unnerving reverie. "We can't stay out here, they could be watching." The urgency in his tone propelled us forward, the warehouse looming in the distance like a monstrous specter against the night sky. The cracked windows and peeling paint were stark reminders of the danger that awaited us inside. Every instinct screamed for us to run away, yet I couldn't help but feel an undeniable force pulling me closer, urging me to unveil hidden truths that danced just out of reach. As we approached the entrance, I hesitated, feeling Mason's arm brush against mine, a calming reminder of our solidarity amid the chaos. "You okay?" he murmured, concern threading through his voice. "No," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "But we have to find out what's going on. We deserve to know why we're in this mess." And with that resolve pulling me forward, I stepped through the threshold, the stale air hitting me like a slap across the face. Dust motes drifted lazily in the dim light, the warehouse a cavern of secrets and shadows. Inside, the vast space was lined with shelves filled with boxes stacked haphazardly, their contents hidden under layers of grime. Flickering fluorescent lights sputtered above us, casting erratic shadows that danced ominously on the walls. The driver turned sharply, his expression darkening as he surveyed the scene. "Stay close and stick together," he warned, tension radiating from him. "It's essential we don't split up." Suddenly, a sound caught my ear. The low rumble of footsteps echoed from deeper within the warehouse, reverberating through the hollow frames. My heart raced, a wild drumbeat in my chest, and I glanced back at Mason and Mia. Their expressions mirrored mine, fear mixed with a desperate curiosity. The footsteps drew closer, and adrenaline surged through my veins. "What if it's them?" Mia's voice shivered, panic lacing her words. "Then we stand our ground," Mason declared, and I marveled at the grit embedded in his tone. "We've faced worse and come through the other side." Another explosion reverberated outside, followed by the distant wail of sirens. My pulse quickened as the footsteps grew louder, and suddenly the figure emerged from the shadows. A tall, imposing man stepped into the flickering light, his features sharp and familiar, eyes a piercing icy blue. My breath hitched in my throat, recognition flooding back. With a rush of cold terror. "Derek," I breathed, disbelief washing over me. He was someone I'd thought I would never see again, a ghost from my past who reeked of betrayal. "What are you doing here?" I demanded, confusion mixing with anger as the memories of our broken trust washed over me like ice water. Derek's smile was cynical as he surveyed our group, pausing momentarily on me, an unsettling triumph gleaming in his gaze. "You shouldn't have come here, Sophia. You have no idea what you've walked into." Neither do you, I shot back, my self-assurance tinged with uncertainty as the gravity of his words sunk in. His laughter echoed through the warehouse, chilling me to the bone. Oh, but I do. It's not just your parents who are in danger. It's you. You have something that belongs to me, and I plan to get it back. That a tremor shot through the air, and for one soul-wrenching moment, I felt the walls of my world closing in. I had entered a web of dangerous games I could never have anticipated. As I glanced at Mason and Mia, their worried expressions mirrored my own deepening dread, and I realized that the secrets were far more tangled than I had expected. I wished I could turn back time, to a place before the chaos took hold, a time when hope felt like a breath away, but there was no turning back now. That a new surge of defiance ignited within me, but as I opened my mouth to speak, Derek's phone buzzed insistently, a strangely intimate intrusion amid the rising tension. He raised a finger to silence us and glanced at the screen, a look that twisted his features, transforming amusement into something darker and more concerned. That I have to take this, he muttered, stepping away as the ominous specter of foreboding gripped us, and just like that, the air felt electric with unanswered questions, the weight of the moment trapped in an unbearable limbo. What did this mean for us? What were Derek's plans? As I stood there, anxiety clawing at my insides, a horrifying thought flickered in my mind. I was not just fighting for our survival, I was grappling for clarity that slipped like sand through my fingers. Each moment in this whirlwind drew me closer to a devastating truth, one I feared I wouldn't be able to confront. And yet above it all, I knew that the most compelling revelations awaited just beneath the surface, buried within the chaos. And as the sharp ring of Derek's phone echoed through the warehouse, I did the only thing I could do. I steeled myself for whatever was coming next, no longer a passive observer but an active participant in the unraveling of an intricate, heart-stopping reality. The tension hung thick in the air as we watched Derek pace away, an unsettling mix of dread and anger swirling through me. What does he want? Mia whispered, panic creeping into her voice. I turned my gaze back to Mason, his brow furrowed in deep thought. Something important. Something he thinks we have. His eyes flickered with determination, but I could sense the flickering light of doubt behind them. We need to prepare for anything. That I nodded, but the reality felt insurmountable. Derek had a hold over us that I couldn't yet grasp, a chain linking my past to a present filled with uncertainty. We had marched into a battlefield without knowing the enemy's true motives, and now, as Derek continued his conversation in muted tones, I felt an urgent need to understand the stakes. Maybe we can listen, I suggested, my voice low. Suddenly, a knot of desperation twisted within me. He can't find what he's looking for if we know more than he does, Mason nodded, a spark igniting in his eyes. Together, we stepped cautiously to the side, weaving between the towering stacks of boxes, hearts pounding in unison. Mia lingered close behind us, glancing nervously toward Derek as if she expected him to sense our movements. We found a shadowed corner where the flickering fluorescence faded into murky darkness, an unobtrusive spot that shielded us from view. Pressing our bodies against the cool metal of a shelf, I strained to hear Derek's low voice. That I told you'll find her, he said, every word dripping with a bitter intensity that sent a shiver down my spine. She can't be too far away. It's just a matter of time. A flash of adrenaline coursed through me. What does he mean, find her? I mouthed to Mason, but he only shrugged, eyes narrowed in concentration. No. You don't understand, Derek continued, frustration bubbling in his tone. She's the one who has the key. If we don't have the key, everything will be lost. I won't let this slip through my fingers again. That I felt my heart race. What key? What could I possibly have that, and why did it place me in such peril? Somehow, I was at the center of a storm I never even realized was brewing. As if reading my thoughts, Mason leaned in closer, his breath warm against my ear. After everything that's happened, I know you're scared. But if we're in this together, we can figure it out. We've already come this far. His words wrapped around me like a reassuring embrace, softening the edges of my rising panic. For a fleeting moment, I reveled in the surge of connection between us, the understanding that had blossomed through the trials we faced. But my thoughts were abruptly interrupted by Mia's sharp intake of breath. Guys, she whispered, her eyes wide with fear as she pointed toward Derek, who had abruptly quieted, his expression shifting from annoyance to focus. I followed her gaze, and horror pooled in my stomach when I saw him staring straight at us, as if he'd sensed our presence all along. The icy gleam in his eyes held a mixture of triumph and malice that sent a shudder through my spine. "That I am not playing games any longer," he declared, balling his fists at his sides. "Sophia, come out now, or consequences will be dire." My throat constricted with fear and uncertainty. The energy between us felt electric, and I could sense a rising urgency to resolve the increasingly dangerous dynamic. In that moment, I made a choice. "We can't hide," I urged Mason and Mia, steeling myself against the déjà vu of dread wrapping around my heart. "We need to confront him. If we stand together now, we might be able to handle this." Mason's eyes searched mine, weighing the risk against the bond we had forged in the fire of our trials. "You're sure?" I nodded, determination flooding my veins. "We deserve answers. We deserve to turn our fear into strength, no matter the outcome." With a deep breath, I stepped out of our sanctuary, tilting my chin defiantly toward Derek. "What do you want from me?" I demanded, surprising even myself with the strength in my voice. Derek's eyes narrowed, a calculating intensity granted him an almost sinister aura. "I came here for what you've taken," he replied, his voice dripped with malice. "And I know you're not brave enough to confront the truth." With every pulse of the heart, I felt the ground shift beneath my feet. The shadows around us transformed into echoes of choices not yet made, futures yet to be written. In that moment, all the lies lived in the space between us, and I recognized a flicker of hope within me, as well as the strength it takes to face the past, but it was quickly overshadowed by dread as the air crackled with tension, and in an instant, I lost the ground beneath me. A deafening crash resonated from behind us, startling most present, sending metal crates tumbling from their precarious heights. Mason leaped to catch Mia, while I staggered back, instinctively catching myself. But as I turned to find balance, I noticed Derek's eyes widen with a mixture of surprise and dread. And then I realized I was not the only one caught unprepared for the chaos that had ensued. With a blinding flash, a figure burst forth from the shadows, gun raised high, purpose burning in their gaze. The reality became starkly clear. Secrets were not the only things spilling into the open tonight. What I thought I understood had unraveled, and as the gunshot resonated through the warehouse, time froze. Derek's future, my own, everything I cherished teetered on the edge of unspeakable danger. And then, everything spiraled into chaos. The dust settled, curling through the air thickly as a sudden silence enveloped us, broken only by the echo of the gunshot ringing in my ears. My heart pounded violently against my ribcage, each beat a reminder of the precariousness of our reality. I didn't know where the shot had come from, but something primal kicked in, self-preservation kicked into overdrive. "Mia! Move!" Mason shouted, pulling her out of the path of debris as the metal crates continued their descent, crashing to the floor with a terrifying cacophony. I felt the adrenaline rush through me, chilling and electric, shoving me into overdrive as we all instinctively ducked for cover. "Derek!" I yelled, trying to catch a glimpse of him, but my vision was obscured by the chaos. My instincts screamed at me to flee, but I could hardly breathe as a heavy wave of uncertainty and dread hung in the air. "Stay low," Mason urged, crouching beside me. I could feel the warmth of his body next to mine, a tangible connection amidst the noise. "We need to find a way out. Where's Derek?" I managed to ask, scanning the room for any sign of his trademark bravado. But in the fray, he had vanished into the chaos, perhaps swallowed by the very shadows he once ruled. "Doesn't matter," Mia said, her voice shaking with residual panic. "We have to." Before she could finish her thought, light flickered dangerously in the corner of my eye. Pushing myself up, I saw the figure that had emerged from the darkness, a silhouette against the stark overhead lights. The gun was still raised, but the person stood unmoving now, caught in a moment of uncertainty as confusion danced through the air, and then, shockingly, that figure lowered the weapon, revealing an all-too-familiar face. Logan, my estranged brother, his expression masked by a mixture of anger and concern. Relief surged in me, a flicker of hope amidst the nightmare, but it was quickly overshadowed by the questions clawing at my mind. "What are you doing here?" I shouted, trying to piece together this inexplicable reunion, a puzzle with too many missing pieces. "I should be asking you the same thing," he thundered, voice trembling, anguish etched into every line of his face. "You don't understand the danger you're in," I wanted to retort, to tell him that he had no idea of the bond we'd forged against Direct's threats, but I could see his terror through the anger. There was something deeper, something that made me feel torn, as though half of me wanted to run to him, to bridge the chasm of years lost, while the other half recognized the peril still lingering, that I no time for this. Mason's urgent voice broke through, pulling me back to the direct threat that loomed in the air. "We need to get out of here. Now, hold on." Logan barked, his demeanor shifting as he assessed the situation, the warmth of a brotherly connection overshadowed by its previous year's estrangement. Without warning, he extended a hand toward me, a gesture I never thought I'd see. "Come with me. I have a plan." Against the backdrop of chaos, something ephemeral flickered within me. The longing to reconcile, to rise above the pain of our shared history and embrace the fragility of connection, burgeoned anew. But the weight of my fears remained, a tether holding me within the embrace of what I believed to be safety. Though I knew this journey could end in even darker shadows, beneath the roar of my heartbeat, I steeled myself, battling the urge to trust him when uncertainty hung in balance. "What about Mia and Mason?" I questioned, glancing back at them as more crates fell, their trajectory steered by chaos itself. "They can follow," Logan insisted, determination in his gaze cutting through the fear that clung to me. It was a promise and a plea wrapped in one. "That we can't just leave them." I shot back, feeling a surge of fierce protectiveness for the small family we had inadvertently created amidst turmoil. My heart thudded with the understanding that decisions made in desperation held a weight I wasn't fully prepared to shoulder. But before anyone could respond, the warehouse came alive with chaos again, rumbles of aggression echoing between these cold walls, and instinct kicked in like never before. Adrenaline coursed through my veins, igniting the sacred spark that resided there. I grabbed Mason's arm and urged him forth, a silent understanding reflecting in our eyes. "Let's go," I shouted, pulling both Mia and Mason along as Logan led the way. The adrenaline fueled our feet, heavy breaths laced with the realization that escape was a desperate dance away from our lives that had spiraled out of control. We turned a corner, the escape route sprawled in front of us until I suddenly found myself looking back into the chaos we had created, and I froze as I saw Derek emerging from the smoke, now armed, his expression warped with rage and vengeance. "Don't think you can run from me, Sophia." His voice thundered through the air, a threat that resonated deeper than the gunshots had ever dared. Freedom felt unreachable with Derek steadily advancing toward us, shadows of our past suddenly intertwining with our present, while my brother's offer solidified into an ominous promise of peril. And just then, from behind me, MIA's shout pierced through my panic, "Watch out!" I whirled around, but it was too late. A lurching figure sprang from the shadows, another gun in tow. The world tilted, distorted, as chaos warped into the unimaginable, and every instinct I possessed screamed that this moment was something I would never escape. And as time slowed, caught in the snare of trembling moments, I realized that confronting Derek, facing fear, and grappling with my brother meant nothing against the tides of what was crashing down into the unknown, and it terrified me more than anything else ever could. I felt the acrid scent of gunpowder in the air, mingling with the rising tide of panic. My heart thundered loudly enough that I almost couldn't hear MIA's urgent shout, which melted into the chaos around us. "Run!" I managed to scream, adrenaline driving my feet forward, but it felt like we were all caught in a grinding heartbeat, every second stretching unbearably as the air thickened with dread that we darted down the narrow alleyway, shadows weaving like tendrils of darkness threatening to engulf us whole. As I half ran, half stumbled behind Mason and Mia, I caught a glimpse of Logan, anger and worry etched into his uncertain expression. "Well, get out of this," he urged, a promise both reassuring and fragile, but the echo of Derek's fury rang in my ears, turning anxiety into a whirlwind, a storm that threatened everything I held dear. He won't stop until suddenly, a piercing gunshot rang out again, slicing through the air like a cold blade. From my periphery, I saw a flash of silver, realized too late that it wasn't only Derek who had been lurking in the shadows. The figure behind me lowered their weapon, aiming for me, but instinct kicked in. I dove to the side just as the bullet brushed past me, grazing my arm. The sharp pain jolted through me, radiating a shockwave of alarm. "Sophia!" Mason shouted, rushing back to help me as I lay sprawled on the ground, clutching my arm. "Are you okay?" His eyes widened when he saw the blood seeping from my wound, but his concern ignited a spark of resolve within me that I need to keep moving, I insisted, shaking off the startled pain with renewed strength. We couldn't slow down, we didn't have time. The world blurred around us as we made our escape, the adrenaline thrumming like a heartbeat in our chests. The warehouse dangerous, filled with specters of our past, had nearly swallowed us whole, but here, under the blanket of night, still held the promise of safety. As we skidded to a halt at the end of the alley, the streetlights flickered hesitantly, and my mind wrestled with the madness inside my heart. What now? Mia gasped, her voice trembling, adrenaline still thrumming through each word. We head to my place, Logan declared, his grip on my shoulder reassuring yet firm. It's safer there. They won't trace us if we think strategically. The wounds on my arm made reality clearer, sharper a reckoning that forced me to face the fear lurking beneath the surface. This wasn't merely about survival anymore, it was about unraveling the truth that had kept my family ensnared in a web of danger. I can't just run, I gasped, the weight of so many unresolved feelings colliding within me. We can't leave my parents, Logan. I have to go back. A swell of emotion washed over me, and I felt tears pooling in the corners of my eyes. What if something happens to them? He hesitated, the flicker of a promise dancing in his eyes born from the shared pain of our past. I know it's hard, but we need to regroup first. We can't fight what we don't understand. You're stronger than you think, Sophia. His voice cut through the tension, reigniting the determination that burned brightly within me, reminding me of the unity we forged. Mason stepped closer, his eyes steady and full of intention. Sophia, if your parents are in danger, we can't let that be the only thing we focus on, he urged, the warmth of his hand over mine grounding me. This isn't just about revenge, it's about finding a way to break the cycle, to shift the narrative. My heart twisted at the realization this journey encompassed more than just my parents' threat, it was about breaking free, reshaping everything around me. So, against the tumult of doubt that spiraled through my mind, I nodded, grasping the truth of the moment. Okay, I whispered, leaning into both of them, a fragile alliance forming. Let's move. As we pushed forward, my thoughts battled between fear and determination, but I felt empowered by Mason and MIA's presence, fortifying the path ahead. We barreled through the streets, dodging shadows while the night hung over us like a veil of apprehension. Logan led us toward a nondescript apartment building, one I'd never thought to explore, but as we neared the door, I caught a glimpse of something glittering in the distance, a flash of lights shining from far beyond our reaches, igniting a hope buried in despair. We slipped inside, the door creaking silently behind us as Logan quickly prompted us to huddle in the small living room. It was a cramped space, filled with clutter and the overwhelming scent of old paper and mystery. A tiny desk stashed in the corner held computer monitors displaying blueprints, photographs, and handwritten notes scattered like remnants of thoughts long erased. What is all this? I asked tentatively, a flicker of curiosity igniting beneath the trepidation pooling in my stomach. Information, Logan replied, shifting toward the desk, revealing the remnants of a life spent hidden in pursuit of a path towards answers. I've been tracking movements, Dad. Get to the bottom of everything. There was a fervor in his words, a palpable connection forged through struggle. It all led back to our parents' involvement in this mess, not just their involvement, Mia interjected, taking a step closer, her voice trembling slightly. They thought they were protecting you, but they didn't see the threat looming behind their decisions, I whispered, my memory flooding with images of family dinners, gentle laughter, small glimpses of joy entwined with the shadows that had chased their dreams away. Did they know it would come to this? We need to find out everything they were involved with, Mason urged. We have to figure out what directs planning and leverage it to take control. I felt the weight of their eyes on me, and in that moment, the truth unfolded as if woven by threads connecting our hearts and destinies. The pieces of our lives intertwined deeper than I knew, a shared purpose blossoming amidst a garden of chaos. Then let's work together. Let's unravel this mess. But we're doing it for them, for each other. As murmurs of agreement bounced within the small confines of our shelter, I felt the warmth of something I hadn't allowed myself to hope for amidst the wreckage, the strength of unity. Together, we would illuminate the shadows that threatened to envelope us. Suddenly, the moment thickened as sirens wailed outside, bouncing off the walls of the apartment, a stark reminder that we weren't nearly safe yet. Logan, how long before they trace us? I asked, my palms clammy with the weight of our reality that he pressed a finger against his lips, quieting the room as he turned his computer screen toward us. This software tracks their movements, but it's only good for so long. We need to stay one step ahead. As everything crystallized around a shared purpose, adrenaline coursed through my veins. In this sprawling chaos, I'd found allies who understood my fear, resilient companions ready to charge into the dark together. Then let's get to work. We'll figure out our next move and rescue my parents. Together. And at that moment, each word tasted like freedom, a promise igniting deep within my soul, a bright flame to guide us through an uncertain path. No longer passive victims of our circumstances, we were warriors stepping into the fray, and as I glanced at each determined face crowded together in that tiny room, a fierce energy surged within my heart. Somehow, against the tide of our turmoil, this felt like the beginning of something greater, an alliance against the dark, a promise that, together, we would emerge into the light. Together, I whispered, my voice barely escaping the confines of my heart. A bond, forged in flames, ready to rise again, a fire that would not be extinguished. As those words hung in the air, I felt a promise forming a tapestry of precarious fervor woven with hope, a shared journey that would lead us back to the truth. And perhaps, in the act of fighting, we would find our way home.